Dollar Tree always has such a great selection of window clings for every holiday and every season, and I have a few brand new ideas on ways that you can use them to decorate. This wood round from the Dollar Tree really caught my eye, and I really like the raised pumpkin on it, and I like that it has a big blank space for a window cling. I grabbed a pack that has just some square window clings on it with different sayings. I thought these would be really easy to work with. I started by giving my wood round one coat of the Antique Wax by Waverly. I'm using a wet wipe here to apply it. That way it dilutes the color a little bit. I did like the natural wood color of this wood round, but I wanted a darker tone. And you can see here, I'm putting the stain on everything except that raised pumpkin. I used a small paintbrush to paint some orange chalk paint on the inlaid parts of this pumpkin. It made it really easy that the walls of those pumpkins was so raised up. I was able to get my paint in there with no problem. And then for the stem, I did the same thing but with green paint. On the raised part of the pumpkin, I'm using some rub and buff in the color Antique Gold. I wanted to rub it right over the surface of this, so I put a glove on because I really didn't want to get this directly on my hands. And I'm just dipping my finger in a little bit of that rub and buff, and I'm just rubbing it right over the top. I assumed when I picked up this pack of window clings that they had a solid opaque background, so I was really surprised when I pulled this one off and saw that it was very transparent. You can see it on the wood round, but it doesn't show up as much as I thought it would. So to remedy that, I just flipped the window cling over, and on the back side, I did a light coat of white chalk paint. Now, I wasn't too worried because this is plastic. The chalk paint was streaking a little bit. That didn't really bother me, but if that's something that would bother you, you'd probably want to do 2 coats instead of just the 1 coat. But I didn't mind seeing some of that texture through the back. I needed to let that paint dry on the window cling, so I just created a template out of a piece of cardstock because I really wanted that window cling in place before I started decorating the rest of this wood round. So this was just a guide for me to know where I was going to place that window cling so that I could decorate the other side. Now for my window cling, I wanted to create a scrappy bow, and if you've been hanging out with me for a while, you've probably seen me do this a number of times before because this is one of my favorite bows to create. The way I do it is I just gather up a bunch of ribbons in different widths and different textures in the color scheme that I like. In this case, I'm using all fall colors and patterns. And for this bow, I decided to cut my lengths down to 8 inches. So you can see here, I'm just working my way through my pile of ribbons that I've gathered up, and I'm cutting 2 of each ribbon down to 8-inch lengths. On the ribbons that are more narrow, instead of dovetailing the ends of those, I just cut those at a slant. And then for the wider ribbons, I did go ahead and dovetail all of those. Once all of my ribbons were prepped, I laid a piece of jute cord down on my work surface, and starting with the wider ribbons, I just started laying them in an X pattern. So you can see here, I started with my super wide ribbons and I moved on to the medium width, and then I'm working my way up to the small. One thing I also kept in mind was the colors that I had on the ribbons. I wanted to make sure that I didn't have 2 of the same colors in a row, so I just alternated colors and patterns and worked my way to the top. Once I had all of my ribbons in place, then I used that jute cord that I had laid down over the surface, and I cinched everything up in the center and tied it in a knot. I also like to go through and pull the tails apart from each other just to give a little separation between the layers of the ribbon and to make it look nice and fluffy. Now I took a shortcut here. I already had this flower swag from another project that I wanted to reuse. You can see here, it's just 2 stems of flowers that I hot glued together in the center and held in place with some clear tape. I did hot glue a piece of that wider ribbon around the center of this flower swag to cover up the clear tape, just in case you saw it from behind my scrappy bow. Then I just used some hot glue to glue my flower swag and my scrappy bow in the corner of the wood round. And you can see this is where that template really came in handy because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to place the swag or the bow in any position that would cover up that window cling. Now that the paint had a chance to dry on the back side of my window cling, I'm just using some Mod Podge with a foam brush to apply it to the front of my wood round. And you can see there's a big difference from the first time I put that window cling on when it was so clear. Now you can really see that pretty yellow color and all of the design that's on it. On a recent trip to Michael's near the front where the registers are, I found this pack of 16 wood rounds. They're mini sized and I immediately thought coasters. Right next to it happened to be some small wooden trays and there was a hexagon shaped one that the circles fit perfectly inside of. Apparently Michael's really wanted you to hang this tray up rather than use it on a surface because not only was there a sawtooth hanger on the back, there was also a rope hanger. I think that's overkill, but whatever. I was able to use a small screwdriver to remove that sawtooth hanger. And then for the rope hanger, I tried to get the staples out, but it just wasn't happening. So I just cut it as close as I could to the surface and it laid flat enough for me. Now these wood rounds are really thin and I thought they would be a little too thin to use as a coaster on their own. So I decided to double them up. I'm just using some hot glue here. You could also use wood glue if you'd like, but I'm just running a small amount of hot glue on one of them and then I'm lining a second one up with it and sandwiching them together. Whenever I make coasters, I always like to put some kind of protective backing on the bottom side of them. Sometimes I use those adhesive cork sheets from the Dollar Tree, but I was all out of those, so I just decided to use a piece of felt instead. Now for my coaster set, I'm going to do 5 coasters, and I was able to cut 5 circles out of one standard sheet of felt. I used a Sharpie to trace around one of those wood rounds to give me a guide, and then when I was cutting it out, I made sure that I stayed about 1/8 of an inch towards the inside of that marker line. That way there wouldn't be any marker showing on it and it would fit inside of my coaster. Now, one tip I have is felt can be really difficult to cut if you don't have a sharp pair of scissors. So make sure your scissors are really sharp and you'll have no problem cutting them out. Now, this is the bottom side of the coaster, so don't worry if your circle's a little wonky. I don't think anybody will see it. I put those felt circles to the side and I got to work on painting my coasters. Now, this wood's light enough you could put window clings right on top of it and it would show up, but I really wanted the colors on mine to be nice and vibrant. So I am giving each of them one coat of white chalk paint. Once my paint was dry, I used some hot glue to attach my felt circles to the bottom of my coasters. Now the felt that I used was pretty thick, so I'm only using one felt circle per coaster. But if you're using thinner felts, like the kind that you get from the Dollar Tree, you may want to think about doubling it up just so that hot glue doesn't seep through the back and it'll protect your surface a little bit more with 2 layers. I picked this set of window clings out for my coasters because on this pack there's a lot of smaller ones. They had some smaller pumpkins and sunflowers and leaves, and since I'm working with such a small surface, I knew I would be able to fit and layer these on each of my coasters. Now this is the fun part. I just started peeling off all of those smaller ones and laying them down on my coasters. And once I had them arranged how I liked them, I took a picture of all of them with my phone so that I could reference it while I was sticking everything in place. I'm using Mod Podge with a foam brush on the back side of my window clings to attach them to my coasters. And like I said, I had that picture on my phone, so I was able to reference it every time I pulled all of my window clings off. Because I think on these coasters, there was only one that actually only had one window cling. The rest of them, I kind of layered several of the smaller window clings together. After I had all of the window clings in place with the Mod Podge on the back side, then I went through and I did give the surface of my coasters 2 coats of the Mod Podge, and I made sure that it dried really well in between. And that's just to help protect it from any beverages you're going to put on it, and it'll protect it from the heat of any hot drinks that you might be using too. I got lucky with this set of window clings. There was this really cute one that had a saying on it, and it fit almost perfectly inside of this hexagon tray. I just had to cut off some of the clear border that was around it. And for the tray, I decided to leave this the natural wood color because this is just going to be on the inside. It's just going to be a small detail that you'll only see whenever you pull all of the coasters out. So you can see here, once I had some of that clear border trimmed off, it fit really perfect inside of this tray. And again, I just used the Mod Podge to attach that to the bottom. To give a little embellishment to my tray, I'm using some orange ribbon that I got at the Dollar Tree this year. I really like this. It has a burlap feel and it has just a touch of gold on the edges. Now this ribbon's a little bit thinner, so rather than running hot glue through the center where I'm gluing down the ribbon, you can see here I'm just putting hot glue at every corner of this hexagon tray. That way you wouldn't see the hot glue seeping through the ribbon. And I also want to mention, keep this craft in mind because Christmas is right around the corner, and I think this would make a really sweet gift for somebody, is a cute little coaster set with its own tray. I still had quite a few of those wood rounds left, so I thought, why not make a cute little candle stand or a little trinket stand? I'm using 4 of the wood rounds this time, and also some wooden beads that I had in my stash and a different pack of window clings. I only needed to paint 1 of the 4 wood rounds because I was going to stack them together, so you'd only see 1 of them anyway. I'm using some yellow chalk paint here, and I just gave it 1 coat. Then I went and did the same thing as I did with the coasters. I'm just using some hot glue, putting a little bit, and then layering 2 of them together and smashing that hot glue through the center. But in this case, I'm going to use 4 because I wanted it to be a bit thicker than the coasters. And I made sure that that one that I had painted was on the top. And you probably already guessed it, but I'm going to use Mod Podge again to attach my window cling. I really love using Mod Podge with window clings. It's so much easier than when you do it with paper because there's no wrinkling and no bubbling. So again, I just added a thin coat of the Mod Podge to the back side of my window cling and placed it on my wood round. I really love that yellow color in the background of this. I used some wooden beads that I had on hand to act as feet for my candle riser. And again, keep this in mind for Christmas. If you're going to give somebody a candle as a gift, it would be really cute if you gave them their own little candle riser to go along with it. Keep an eye out at the Dollar Tree for different photo frames, pieces of box art, or wood blanks that you could add window clings to if you need a piece of decoration for a tiered tray, a mantle, or even your coffee bar. I love this photo frame because it doesn't have a backer to it. It just has 2 pieces of glass. And since most of the window clings are transparent, I thought this would look really cool sitting on a windowsill. Now, this one that I had in this pack fit pretty perfectly inside of this, and because it's glass, I didn't have to use any Mod Podge this time. I just added it to the backer piece of glass, added the other one, and then reassembled the frame, and I have this really cute, quick piece of art that took no time at all. I had this leftover piece of box art for Christmas, and I wanted to create the decoration on the back side of the box art. That way I can just flip it for the different seasons. So I'm using a piece of white cardstock here. I just traced around the box art, cut that cardstock out, and made sure that it fit inside of the back of the box art. I'm using one of my Tim Holtz distress inks in the color Gathered Twigs. I'm using a little sponge dabber here, and I'm just adding some of the ink all around the edges of this pieces of cardstock because I really like that old weathered look that this inking gives the paper. I picked out this cute little wheelbarrow from one of my window cling packs, and I'm just adding a light coat of Mod Podge to the back side and adding that to my cardstock piece. You could use any type of adhesive to put this piece of cardstock back in the box art. I'm just using some art glitter glue here, but you could use more Mod Podge or even hot glue. And now I have a reversible piece of art that I can put on my coffee bar. This blank piece from the Dollar Tree is actually a wipe-off board for dry erase markers, and window clings stick to it without any kind of adhesive. So to decorate this one up, I'm just laying down a few fall leaves in different colors, and then I have this cute little bow that I made out of some black and white gingham ribbon because I love black and white gingham still. And then I just picked out one of the window clings that fit inside of this, and I was able to stick that right down in the bottom corner without any Mod Podge. I'm really excited that it's time to start fall decorating again. I've already bought my first bottle of pumpkin spice coffee creamer and I love it. All right, everyone, I hope you have a great week and I'll talk to you in the next one.